How will you live under oppression? That's what I want to talk about today. Uh, Hello, welcome to Integrated Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. We're on a little trip, and so I thought I'd stop for a minute and talk about kind of some of the things that are going on, and how you might be dealing with it, and how you think you might deal about things as they progress. I made one some time ago. I'm going to talk kind of quietly here so I don't interrupt other people. We're down in the lobby of where we're staying. And made some time ago about living under oppression, and I got some people really kind of getting upset about it. Why do you talk about living under oppression? We need to fight back. We need to stand up. We need to go to the barricades, go to the wall. Things like that. And and while I understand that sentiment, it's kind of it kind of is an indication of a refusal to understand the realities of what's going on. The realities are that we are already living under oppression, and that the oppression is increasing. How that's going to play itself out, we don't yet know. But we should think about what we're doing now and what we are prepared to do in the future. To begin with, I think everybody needs to understand that we are always under oppression. Okay, people can argue about the term or whatever, but anytime there's a restriction put on you, an external restriction put on you, that is a form of oppression. Okay, oppression is the taking away of any freedom by an outside force. It's not the self-restraint that we impose upon ourselves, but it is the constraints placed upon us by outside forces, outside authorities, outside whatever it is. So we're always living under some degree of restraint or oppression, and that simply changes throughout history and throughout. It has its ebbs and flows as the political landscape changes here in our country and worldwide. But it's important to think about and to talk about, but definitely to think about how we respond to and how we operate under oppression. Because that's the reality. The reality is not that we're all standing up against oppression and throwing off the chains of oppression and all that. That's not what's happening. And it's not probably ever going to happen. Now, there's a lot of pushback, a lot of people standing up, a lot of people fighting against what's going on, whether it's in a personal way like Kelly and I are with our work situation, or whether it's being done on a larger political scale like it is in many of the states now, or even in the nation. We're always going to go through that process. But it's important to think and to kind of war game it with ourselves. How are we going to deal with an increasing oppression if it comes along? This is why I made several videos before. They're over on Patreon about a couple of different groups who had perfected, to a certain extent, the ability to live under oppression. And one of those groups is the Mafia. That's a misnomer. It shouldn't be referred to that here in the United States, but just the organized crime elements, not as they exist today, but as they formed back in the early 1900s, which allowed a people who had grown up under oppressive governments, who for generations had adapted under waves and waves of conquerors and oppressive governments. They had adapted and developed the ability to live, many of them, very well underneath that structure. And that came over to the United States, that began in Sicily and Italy, came over to the United States in basically the early 1800s. And they were able to use those abilities, those skills, those understandings to develop very good lives here in the United States. Another group is The Irish Republican movement in Ireland is still going on. It's been going on for 800 years. So you can question whether or not it has been successful or not, but it has become a way of life over there that has allowed a large segment of very oppressed people to live good, fulfilling lives within a struggle. And that's an interesting thing to think about within the struggle. Now, you can say that the first group, organized crime, the Mafia, whatever you want to call it, were sellouts in that they worked with the system. They would develop ways to have an effect on the system that was trying to affect them. Okay, and by working within that system, they were able to control large segments of that system. I think that's a very smart way to do it. I don't consider that a sellout. I consider that more of a political judo in redirecting the forces against you to enable you to have a good life and to kind of work against the system itself. The Irish situation, they certainly weren't sellouts. They've been fighting for 800 years and haven't given up yet. And as a result, they have, like I say, they've carved out. They've pretty much won what they were after. Not entirely. It's still a political, slugfest, but for the most part, they have. Which one of those we want to come down on? It's that's a personal choice. Everybody's different. Everybody has different skills, different abilities, different personalities, different ways of fighting different fights, right? And so to say that anyone is right or anyone is wrong, as long as they're fighting for or resisting against what they believe or don't believe in, I think is a mistake to criticize them for it. What I consider to be important to think about now is how to maintain quality of life within whatever is going around. Now, you've heard me talk about this before, and that's one of the main tenets of integrative preparedness, is to ensure that we prepare in a way that not only prepares for some catastrophe in the future, but improves our ability to deal with life today and improves the quality of our life today. It's kind of what we always say in our tagline, and that is we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. Well, that implies a living well also today, no matter what the situation. Now, we've seen over recent months, a couple of years, a real push towards I don't know how I want to term this. There's many ways I could term it. I'll just say an increase of oppression against us, and people have dealt with that differently. What I want to say is that regardless of what types of oppression are attempted against us, it's important to deal with that strategically and dynamically. It doesn't mean you're always up and making noise about it. What it means is that you are dealing with it in such a way that it affects you as little as possible, that you're able to live within the cracks of, and there are always cracks. You look at any resistance movement in history, and where they operate are within the cracks. And what they do is they get in there and they make those cracks bigger and bigger and bigger until the larger oppressive force finally cracks and falls apart. That it's a simplified way of putting it. But you learn to live well in the cracks. Now, some people will say, "I don't want to live in a crack. I'm an American. We are well." Yeah, I get that. But the thing is that sometimes that's just the world you live in. That's what you have to deal with. And you can make a choice, either deal with it or don't deal with it. Now, if you're not going to deal with it, I don't know exactly how that looks. And I'm sure it looks different to different people. It means standing up and being hammered down. And for those who that's their wish, who am I to say they're wrong? But That's really not what brings about success in the future. From every great oppression comes usually a response that brings a return of freedom. If you look at the American Revolution, the freedoms that we enjoyed here at the beginning of our country would never have come about had it not been for the oppression that preceded them. Okay, the oppression that made the American Revolution necessary. Okay, I would take that also into the war that they mistakenly termed the Civil War here in the United States. That was simply another matter of a people who tried to fight against oppression. They did not win that particular engagement, but that fight is still going on, and I'm going to do another one in the future, really talking about how what we're going through now is simply an extension of that war in the 1860s. That's where the seeds of what's happening now were sown. And now more and more people are starting to see it. Those who rise up and see the early signs are often, criticized as being fearmongers and conspiracy theorists and things like that. But very often the case is they simply understand history better than those, who are criticizing them. So I think what I want to say here is simply that, you can say, how am I handling oppressive forces? I refuse to allow my life to be changed in a negative way to the extent that I can by them. I'm determined to live a quality and happy, fulfilled life, regardless of what's going on politically and the oppression that's being brought against. Now, that oppression can finally get so heavy that it makes it impossible. But it's not impossible yet. And during the times to where it's not impossible yet, these are the times that we also strengthen ourselves and bolster ourselves and do those things, keep up the fight as we go through this process, keep up the fight that will restrain the march, the further march of that totalitarian oppression. And that's what we have to do. But I want to encourage everyone, don't get all down. Don't get all down. Be determined to live your life well. Don't consume yourself with how horrible things are, or that war is around the corner, or whatever it is. Waking up every day to embrace doom is no way to live life. God meant you to get up each day to embrace life, not doom. And to the extent that you embrace either one of those is the extent that you're going to either enjoy or really suffer through a life. So I just say keep those things in mind. Oppression is simply something that will always be with us to one degree or another. Sometimes it's noticeable, very noticeable. Other times it's not, but it's always there. And that's why it always needs to be guarded against. But use it as a way to sharpen yourself, not to dull yourself against its force, and use it as a catalyst, an impetus towards something better and something greater. So I'll leave it at that. I hope you all are having a good day. We're having a great day, and I'll leave you with the thought that remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. Preparing well today almost always starts with the right kind of thinking, the kind of thinking that is determined to make your life better every day, not defensive and fearful. So you all have a good day, and I'll talk to you later.